soul begins to remember, not memories of this life, but echoes of lifetimes, whispers from far before your first breath. Today, I invite you to sit with me, not just to listen, but to feel. You may not have heard of Edgar Cayce, the American mystic known as the Sleeping Prophet. But his insights into the soul's journey have awakened countless seekers. He once said that the soul returns again and again until it completes its learning, until it becomes one with its higher self. But some souls, very few, reach the final chapter. If you are seeing these signs, this may be your last life cycle. But don't rush to conclusions. Instead, come close. Let me share a story. When I was a young monk, I met a traveler who had come to our monastery from the West. He was restless, wealthy, curious, but burdened. He said to me, "I've seen the world, tasted everything, and yet nothing satisfies." He looked into my eyes with a strange intensity and asked, "Do you think this is my last life?" I did not answer. Instead, I offered him tea. And I said, "Let us sit and watch the steam rise. The answer will come with stillness." This man, like many of you, was feeling something ancient stir inside him. So let us begin with the first sign. Sign 1. Deep disinterest in material success. You may have walked the path of ambition, only to find it empty. Cars, titles, applause, they no longer move you. In fact, they may even feel foreign. That is no coincidence. A soul in its final cycle grows weary of the world's distractions. You might find yourself pulled toward simplicity, toward nature, silence, meaning. There's no need to escape the world, but you're beginning to understand. The world was never meant to define you. Sign 2. You feel a strong pull toward solitude and reflection. This is not loneliness. It is sacred space. If you find yourself retreating into quiet, not to hide, but to listen, your soul is tuning in to its higher frequency. When the chatter of society grows too loud, and you seek refuge in your own presence, you are touching the divine. I remember nights under the Bodhi tree in silence. No scriptures, no voices, just the wind, the stars, and something greater watching back. It is in these moments that a soul's true wisdom unfolds. Sign 3. Compassion overwhelms you, even for strangers. Have you ever cried at the sight of a beggar or felt pain for a bird with a broken wing? Soul on its final journey experiences the suffering of others as its own, because in truth, it is your own. Compassion, Cayce said, is not an emotion. It is memory. The memory that we are all fragments of the same eternal light. There was once a monk who could not step on even a single ant without apology. When asked why, he replied, "Once I too was tiny." And someone stepped gently. And so, if you've been wondering why your heart has become more tender than ever before, it may not be weakness. It may be your soul remembering everything it once was. Sign 4. You seek truth above all. Else, truth has become your compass. Not comfort. You question everything, religion, politics, even yourself. You do not seek to be right. You seek to know, to remember. And the more truth you uncover, the more you realize how much you do not know. This humility, this burning curiosity, is not the beginning of your journey. It's the end of a long cycle of lives chasing answers in the wrong places. You've searched as a warrior, a lover, a scholar, a criminal. Now, you're ready to be still and listen. Sign 5. You feel the illusion of time and identity fading. There's something strange that begins to happen. You start to forget your age. You look in the mirror and the face seems unfamiliar because deep inside, you no longer identify with the body or the name or the label. You are not your job or your nationality, or even your thoughts. You are something ancient, boundless, watching from behind your eyes. This is the soul preparing to transcend form, not to escape life, but to finally live it without illusion. Let me tell you, dear one, each of these signs is not a badge of pride, but a gentle calling, a whisper from the eternal that you are nearing completion. And with this awareness comes responsibility. Because if this is your last life, then every moment is sacred, every choice a final lesson, every breath a preparation for return. But we are only halfway through. There are 4 more signs still to come, and one, perhaps the most mysterious of all, waits in silence for you to recognize it. When I was younger, I believed that the path to truth was lit only by knowledge, so I read scriptures, sutras, philosophies, even the words of skeptics. But eventually, I discovered something even more powerful. Silence. Not the absence of sound, but the presence of stillness. It was in that stillness that I learned. Some signs do not speak. They resonate. And now, let us continue. There are 4 more signs that may reveal your soul is in its final cycle here. Not everyone will recognize them. But if you do, don't be afraid. This is not the end. It is the beginning of something you've long forgotten. Sign 6. You experience déjà vu or unexplainable familiarity. Often you walk into a place you've never been, and yet it feels like home. You meet someone for the first time, but something in their eyes makes you pause. This isn't your imagination. Your soul carries memory beyond this life, not in words or images, but in vibration. Edgar Cayce spoke of soul memory as a language beyond thought. The feeling of recognition is not coincidence. It is a mirror reflecting back a life you once lived, or a lesson you left incomplete. Let me tell you something. I once traveled to a remote village in the Himalayan foothills. I had never been there, but I knew every turn in the path, every sound of the wind against the stone. An elder there looked at me and said, "You've come home." Not because I was born there in this life, but because a piece of my soul once was. So when you feel déjà vu, pause, honor it. It may be your soul remembering the unfinished threads of a previous tapestry. Sign 7. You've grown detached from drama and judgment. Have you noticed how the chaos of the world no longer tempts you? You don't argue like you used to. You don't seek to prove anyone wrong or stand on pedestals built from opinions. Why? Because judgment feels heavy, unnecessary. You begin to see people not as wrong or right, but as growing, evolving, searching. This is not passivity. This is the wisdom of detachment. A soul nearing completion stops labeling. It starts loving, even from afar, even without agreement. There was once a student who asked me, "Master, why do you never argue?" I smiled and said, "Because I no longer need to win. I only need to understand." The need to be right fades when you remember. No one truly wins in illusion. If you found yourself walking away from drama, not out of fear, but peace, that is your spirit choosing stillness over noise, clarity over chaos. Sign 8. You feel guided by an inner knowing. You can't explain. This is one of the most mysterious signs. A soul in its final cycle begins to trust something beyond the mind. You might call it intuition or grace or simply knowing. You sense danger before it arrives. You make choices that defy logic, yet lead to peace. You walk away from things you once would have clung to, because deep inside, something is guiding you gently, but unmistakably. I remember crossing a river during monsoon season with no bridge. The current was strong. My companions were afraid. But something within me whispered, "Step forward." And I did. The waters parted just enough for us to pass. That's when I realized wisdom doesn't shout, it whispers. And when you listen, life aligns. If you feel guided lately by something silent, you are not imagining it. You are remembering how to listen. Sign 9. You sense that you have nothing left to prove. This sign is perhaps the most powerful. When the ego begins to dissolve, the soul shines through. You no longer crave attention, recognition, or applause. You no longer measure your worth by your achievements. You don't need to impress anyone, not even yourself. You have become content with presence, with being. Cayce once described such a soul as ready to become one with the whole, because it has remembered its divine nature. It has learned what it came here to learn. Let me tell you, there comes a moment, quiet, almost unnoticed, when you stop chasing. Not because you're tired, but because you finally understand. You were never running toward something. You were running from your own truth. And now, you've turned around. You've come home. So now, you've heard the 9 signs. But this is not the end of our journey together. These signs are not checkboxes. They are invitations, each one calling you to live more deeply, more mindfully, more fully. And if this is your last life cycle, then let it be your most beautiful. But the story doesn't end here. In our next conversation, I will share what to do with this knowledge, how to prepare your soul for transition, how to embrace your final chapter not with fear, but with freedom. Now that the signs are known to you, what comes next? Many believe that recognizing these signals is the destination. But my dear listener, awareness is only the beginning. When a soul is in its final life, it must not only see the signs, it must live them. The last life is not about escape. It is about embodiment. Let me tell you what I've learned, not from books or chance, but from walking alongside seekers, elders, children, and even those on their deathbeds. The truth of the final life is not about detachment from the world. It's about presence within it. If this truly is your final reincarnation, then the way you carry yourself now becomes the offering your soul lays at the feet of eternity. So, how should one live when nearing the end of their soul's earthly journey? Begin each day with deep presence. The final soul understands that every sunrise is not a routine, it is a revelation. Don't rush through your morning. Don't grasp your phone or chase plans. Sit. Breathe. Let your first thought not be what do I need to do today, but who do I need to become today? When I wake, before my feet touch the ground, I whisper inwardly, "Thank you for another breath. I am still here. I still have a chance to love." Let your day begin with presence, and it will flow with purpose. Release past lifetimes of guilt and shame souls. Carry residue. Across incarnations, pain clings, mistakes, regrets, wounds. But if this is your last life, you must release what no longer serves your evolution. Ask yourself, are you still punishing yourself for a story that ended long ago? Do you carry guilt for what your younger self did, or what another version of you believed? I knew a woman who wept every time she heard the sound of a flute. Later, in a deep meditative state, she remembered a life in which she played that very flute, to lead others into war. She had carried the grief of her choices through many births, but once she forgave herself, truly, the music returned to her. This time, it brought healing instead of pain. If you feel guilt for things you do not understand, perhaps it is from a time you do not remember. you do not need to remember in order to release. Forgiveness is not forgetting. It is returning to wholeness. Practice humility in everything in the final life. Ego becomes thinner, like old paper dissolving in water. But pride will still test you, so remain humble, not in a performative way, but a sacred one. Speak with gentleness. Listen more than you speak. Serve when no one is watching. The most awakened souls do not shout their wisdom. They sweep the floor with the same care as they teach. They bow to children. They apologize easily. I remember an old teacher. He had only one robe and walked barefoot always. He once said, "When I was young, I wanted to change the world. Now I only want to bless it." Let humility be your final teacher. Practice spiritual minimalism. This is not about throwing away your belongings. It's about letting go of what clutters your soul. You don't need more mantras, more tools, more books. You need space. Space. To hear your soul, to hear the divine. Spend time with your breath. Feel your heartbeat. Let go of teachings that no longer serve your path. Cayce once said, "The soul attains not by adding more, but by becoming less." If you feel overwhelmed, even by spiritual ideas, return to silence. There, you'll remember what you truly are. Be at peace with death and befriend impermanence. This may be the most profound preparation. A soul in its last life does not fear death. It welcomes it as part of the return. Have you noticed yourself becoming calm around topics that once frightened you? Funerals don't rattle you. Gray hairs don't alarm you. Instead, you feel a softness when thinking of endings. That is because your soul knows. The end is not the end. It is simply the closing of a long chapter before a final reunion with the I, divine. I've sat with the dying. I've held hands that went cold. And in their last moments, the most awakened ones smiled, not because they were unafraid, but because they remembered. This life is a borrowed garment. We must return it with grace. So, if you feel yourself letting go of the fear of death, it is not because you are giving up, it is because you are coming home. These practices are not meant to be followed like commandments. They are invitations, pathways, opportunities for remembrance. If you are truly nearing the completion of your soul's time here, then live not with urgency, but with reverence. And know this: it is not about leaving the world behind. It is about seeing it, perhaps for the very first time, with sacred eyes. But this is still not the end. There is one final lesson to share, a secret that many seekers overlook, not about signs or steps, but the purpose behind your entire journey. In our next and penultimate page, we will uncover this final sacred truth. You've walked with me through signs and silence, through the stories of recognition and the guidance of intuition. But now, let me tell you something most seekers overlook: why you've returned, why these signs matter, and why it is essential, before your final chapter closes, to understand the meaning of it all. You see, the question isn't, am I in my last life? The question is, what is my soul here to complete? And that answer is not found in the stars. It's found in the stillness between your breaths. Let us uncover the forgotten purpose of your soul's journey. This is what I call the circle of completion. You are here to embody love, not escape. Pain, many spiritual seekers, perhaps unknowingly, spend their whole lives trying to escape suffering. They believe that the soul evolves by avoiding discomfort, but pain is not your enemy. It is your tea. If you are in your final life, you will not run from heartbreak. You will sit with it, embrace it, and allow it to transform you. Because the ultimate evolution is not avoidance. It is alchemizing pain into love. Let me share a story. I once met a man who had been betrayed deeply, by family, by lovers, even by monks. He told me, "I cannot forgive them." So I said, "Then do not yet, but understand them. Walk around in their suffering years later." He returned to me with tears in his eyes and whispered, "They were broken too, just like I was." That was the moment his soul softened. That was when his final work began. You are not here to avoid the fire. You are here to become the light within it. You must give more than you take. In every incarnation, we receive. Parents give us their time. Teachers share wisdom. Even strangers offer us kindness in small, sacred ways. But in your final life, the balance must shift. You must give back, without calculation, not just money. Not just effort, but presence, kindness, healing, patience, that quiet moment where you put down your pride and lift someone else's heart. I remember an old woman who had nothing, no wealth, no status, but she gave everyone who passed her home a smile, a cup of water, and a prayer. When she passed, an entire village mourned, not because of what she had, but because of what she gave. If you sense the time has come to pour, instead of always filling, that is your soul preparing to leave, a legacy of light behind. You must complete the unfinished soul contracts. Now, this part may feel mystical, but it is one of the most grounded truths I've ever known. Every soul has what we call contracts, agreements made before birth to meet certain people, face certain trials, and return certain energies. Some are karmic. You were hurt. And now, you must forgive. Some are teaching. You abandoned and now you must stay. Some are service. You misused power. And now you must serve quietly. Have you ever wondered why certain people trigger you so deeply? Or why you're pulled toward helping someone, even though it makes no sense? That is the pull of a soul contract. In your final life, these unfinished patterns come to the surface, louder than ever, not as punishment, but as final invitations to heal the last threads that bind you to this realm. So ask yourself, who do I need to forgive? Where must I return to bring closure? Who am I still silently resenting, resisting, or refusing? Don't avoid the discomfort. Step into it. Heal it. Close the loop. You must leave the world better than you found. Your final mission is not just personal, it is universal. You are not a passive guest on Earth. You are a caretaker of this place. A guardian of truth, kindness, and quiet transformation. Even if your name is never known, even if your acts are small, you are responsible for carrying light into the shadows you encounter. This is not about saving the world. It is about honoring it. When you walk gently on the earth, when you speak truthfully, when you encourage growth in others without pride, you become a living prayer, and that prayer echoes long after your final breath. Now, dear listener, let me offer you one final reflection before we approach our closing page. The signs, the guidance, the stories, they're not just for entertainment, they are mirrors. And if they have resonated with you, then perhaps you are not just watching this, you are remembering. And if you are remembering, then you are ready to return, not in rebirth, but to origin, to source, to unity. But before we reach the final page, we will explore how to prepare your soul for that sacred return, not just by ending your journey, but by transcending it. In the next and final chapter, we will speak of the great crossing and the grace that comes when a soul walks its last steps in beauty. Now we come to the final mile of our conversation, the quiet path where all souls, once aware of their nearing completion, must eventually walk. You see, there is a difference between ending a journey and transcending it. One closes a door, the other walks through it and never looks back. This page, dear listener, is not just for information. It is for initiation. A preparation not for death, but for return. Return to source, to the original light, to the one from which you, I, and all things arise. Let me now share with you what I've come to understand after years of silence, stillness, and sitting with the dying. The soul's final gift is gratitude. Without condition in earlier lives, we often say, I am grateful for the good. But in the soul's final incarnation, the awakened heart says, I am grateful for everything. This includes the heartbreak, the betrayal, the years lost, the bodies we judged, the pain we thought we didn't deserve. True gratitude sees all things as sacred because the final soul understands even the broken road was still a path toward light. You begin to thank your enemies. You whisper thank you to the nights you cried alone. You hold hands with your past versions and say, you did the best you could. I'm proud of you. This kind of gratitude does not need a reason. It is a state of grace. If you find yourself saying thank you for things you once cursed, you are not weak. You are free. Prepare not for death, but for dissolving into wholeness. The final life is not about dying. It's about merging, becoming one with the ocean after lifetimes as a drop, becoming spacious, boundaryless, infinite. You may begin to feel less attached to your identity. Your name feels less important. Your titles don't carry weight. You no longer seek recognition. And strangely, you begin to care more deeply for everything, even as you hold on to nothing. This is the paradox of completion. You become fully present in the world, while simultaneously preparing to leave it behind. You do not vanish. You expand. You dissolve into what you've always been beneath the veil. As Edgar Cayce often echoed, the soul meets itself in the silence beyond all form. That silence is not a void. It is a homecoming. Live as a blessing. In your final incarnation, you stop asking, what can I take? You begin asking, how can I bless? To bless is to be a living temple, to make your words an offering, to make your steps a prayer, to make your gaze a source of peace for all it touches. You don't have to be famous. You don't have to be followed. Just be someone whose presence softens the air around them. I remember an elder monk once told me, if people feel more peaceful after sitting beside you, you have fulfilled your dharma. So I ask you now, can you live in such a way that even the trees feel your reverence? Can your silence become a sanctuary for the anxious? Can your smile mend 1,000 wounds? That is mastery. That is transcendence. Leave nothing unspoken, unforgiven, or unloved. The final soul does not carry unfinished business. So speak the words you've been withholding. Call the one your pride told you to avoid. Forgive those who are no longer here to apologize. And most of all, love those you once deemed unlovable, including yourself. Because when your soul stands at the edge of return, it will not ask, what did I achieve? It will ask, what did I leave behind in the hearts of others? Release the weights. Say the words. Wrap up the story with gentleness. Even if they never understand you, choose peace anyway. Surrender with awe, not fear. The last and most sacred step is surrender. Surrender not with despair, but with awe. Not with resistance, but with reverence. Know that you have lived, you have loved, you have returned again and again. And now perhaps you've remembered enough to finally rest. Close your eyes, one day with a smile, not because you're giving up, but because you finally understood this was all a dream. A dream that taught you how to wake up. So, my dear soul, if these words found you today, if they resonated in the chambers of your heart like old echoes, then perhaps You're closer than you realize, not just to the end, but to the beginning before the beginning. And if this truly is your last life, then walk the remaining steps as a blessing. Speak as though you are leaving echoes behind. Love as though it's the final time the universe gets to express itself through you. And in the end, return not with regret, but with wonder. Now, there is one final message I must share with you. A final whisper of guidance, like the closing of a sacred book, where all pages come together. Let us meet there, in the final conversation, one last breath of wisdom before we bow in silence. Now, we arrive, not at an end, but at the doorway where words fall silent and only the heart speaks. You've walked with me through the signs. You've listened to the echoes of lifetimes folded into your soul. You've reflected on karmas, contracts, and the mystery of your being. You've remembered who you are beneath the many roles and forms. So what now? What does one do when they know, truly know, that this may be the last time their soul breathes through flesh and bone? You live differently. You walk lighter, you speak gentler, you love deeper, and most of all, you surrender. Not in defeat, but in devotion. The art of returning. In the sacred texts of many wisdom traditions, the moment before a soul departs is described not as death, but as the great return. To return means you were never separate. To return means you've always belonged. To return means you're finally coming home. But to return gracefully, one must live presently. To depart in peace, one must live in peace. So I ask you to begin now, not tomorrow, not when the conditions are perfect, but now. Let your soul's final incarnation be its most beautiful. Let it be a masterclass in grace. Let it become a final song, whose melody others will hum without knowing your name, but feeling your presence. Let go of the need to be understood. In this last cycle, not everyone will see your light. Some will mock your softness. Some will resist your silence. Others may call your stillness laziness, your gentleness weakness, your detachment aloofness. Let them. You are not here to be understood by the world. You are here to understand the world and love it anyway. When you are no longer driven by validation, you become a vessel for liberation. Like the wind, you move through life, touching everything, but never clinging to anything. This is the silent glory of a soul on its final path. Final blessing from one monk to another. Soul, before we part, may I offer you a blessing? A whisper for the road ahead, a prayer from the silence between these words. May your final journey be light. May your memories return to you like soft rain. May every pain you endured become a pearl of compassion. May you leave this world empty of resentment and full of love. May the great source greet you not as a stranger, but as an old friend, arms open, eyes weeping with joy, saying, "Welcome back, you remembered." The closing silence, and now, beloved traveler, I step back, because where you're going, no teacher is needed, no monk, no book, no map, only your soul and its silent knowing. Remember, if you feel alone, the universe is listening. If you feel lost, you are being rerouted. If you feel done, perhaps you are ready, ready to rest, ready to rise, ready to return. So bow now, not to me, but to your own Sobo for the lifetimes you walked blindly. Bow for the times you rose after falling. Bow for the countless days you whispered prayers no one heard, except the stars. Bow, because you made it. I'll meet you again, not in this body, but in the light that remains when all names fade. Until then, walk in peace, remember in silence, and love without end. May your soul return whole. You were never lost. You are home, This is not just a video, it's an experience, a spiritual mirror, a call to remember. Watch till the end and let the closing words awaken what your soul has always known. If this message touched you, please like the video to let others discover it. Comment below. What resonated most with your journey? Subscribe for more weekly wisdom, spiritual insights, and stories that awaken the soul. Share this with someone who may need it today. You are not alone. You were never forgotten. Welcome home.